drifted. Is this work out? You can hear me. Fantastic. And slightly overdressed, but I'm going to keep my water nearby. 24 hours to get here, so thank you for having me. It's a really good way to start the day. My trip to India. And I'm very sad to have got in right at the end here because there are so many similarities. I retired from cricket way back, 2003. And obviously before South Africa started choking, we were a fantastic team in those days. We were it, I'm afraid. But the interesting thing for us was we came out of a sporting isolation in South Africa. So to put things in perspective, talk about making things, scaling things up. We had no scale whatsoever to compare ourselves to or get any feedback from any market anywhere. So every single day that we played for South Africa was like going back to school for us. So whether we were 22 years old, as I was, as Hansi Cronje was, or 32, like Peter Kirsten, Kepler Wessel was fast approaching 32. Every single day, each and every one of us was learning something new about international cricket. The best thing about it, we got paid to do it. I mean, I know you look at the IPL, you think of what the broadcast rights have just been sold for, and auctions coming up, and players don't know whether they should stay with the team or get put back into the auction, because there is money to be made in this incredible game that we all love so much. But back to 1992, there wasn't a great deal. I think what we did then, certainly, was we got paid to do what we love. And that hopefully was an element that came across in the style of play, not just of myself, but of the whole South African team. Because many of the players had witnessed generations of white, non-white, all races, not given the opportunity to play for our country. So when I was asked about, is it a privilege to play for your country? I really believed it. Was it a dream come true? No, it wasn't a dream come true, because it wasn't even a dream. When I finished school, I went to university, I got a Bachelor of Commerce degree, because I would have to get a job in the real world one day. And none of us here are in the real world, let's face it. We're making the world our own. Corporate environment, I've worked for Standard Bank for quite a while. Fortunately, T20 cricket started, not the IPL. We called it Pro 20 in South Africa. I was a Standard Bank, I don't know what to call it, account manager for the cricket. I was a business banker, as I said. But then I became a sponsorship manager for the T20, and we grew that product. So I've had a really interesting run in seeing how the game of cricket has changed. And it's not just about the IPL. It's not just about T20. Because in every environment, I've seen change take place all over. And there's three ways that you can handle the change. In your environment, you can turn your back on it and say, it's not for us, it's not for me, it's not how we do things as a corporate or as a business, as a company. That's not what we do. Or you can say, man, that's a great idea. Let's do that. The problem with that is that if you embrace change and say, what a great idea, you're only keeping up with the opposition. What we discovered the hard way at a couple of World Cups, just a couple. If you want to win World Cups and be number one, you have to initiate the change. In your industry, in your business, you have to initiate change. And as I said, it wasn't just IPL that changed cricket. For us, it was 1996, the Cricket World Cup. Remember who won the World Cup in 1996?
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. Now, in 1992, South Africa were back in the World Cup for the first time in 27 years. Well, there was no World Cup when we left through sporting isolation. But Sri Lanka played in that World Cup in 1992, and they came stone last in that tournament. I think the only team they beat was us, South Africa. We were so focused on Bruno and Tunga. And we forgot about the game. So we took our mind off the reason that we were there. We were really irritated with I see nothing's changed with Bruno and Tunga. Some of the photos we see of it. He's still causing chaos. And what the Sri Lankans was that they said, you know, the plan then in world cricket was, let's build a foundation in the first 10 overs. The first 15 overs, we lay a platform. One wicket lose maximum, and maybe 45 to 55 runs is a good score. We lay that platform, and we come hard at the end. We'll smash the ball, and there was no power play. So the middle period was perfect for a player like me, hit the ball on the ground, run like crazy, backwards and forwards. So that was how international cricket was played, 1992, before the World Cup in 96. The Sri Lankans said, we tried that and we came stone last. Let's change the way we play the game. Sanath Jayasuriya, remember him? Yes. Ramesh Kalautarana, I mean the smallest guys in world cricket. Suddenly had the biggest bats. And literally 007 licensed to throw. And they just were told, if you see it, hit it. And let's face it, when Sanath hit the ball, you might have been aiming there, but often it went there or there. The rating did not care. Their game plan was to score between 90 and 100 in the first 15 overs. Take the game away from the opposition. If they lost 3 wickets, that's okay. Suddenly the rest of us were saying, hold on, we need pinch hitters. Pat Simcox, you hit the ball a long way. Everybody else looking for pinch hitters. But they were never as consistent as Sanath and Ramesh Kalautarana. Sri Lanka won the World Cup because they initiated the change. So the changes that you see in cricket, it's not just about the IPL. Sure, the money in cricket is about the IPL because it is about eyeballs and network, television rights. That certainly is a massive contributing factor to it. But the way that the game was changed was by the Sri Lankan guys in 1996. And they became the world champions. So something to think about. What do you do when change takes place in your environment? Because let's face it, it's happening everywhere. It's not happening to you, it's happening to your consumers, your clients, the team around you, the people that you work with. There's change happening constantly. How are you dealing with that change? As South Africans, what we said, 1999 World Cup. Bob Woolmer was the coach, Hansie Cronje the captain, and it was played in England. And Bob Woolmer had been watching television, and he was watching the American football game. And he said he saw the coach, he had a chat with Hansie Cronje, saw the coach, I saw Virat Kohli the other day with a walkie-talkie, talking to somebody. I mean, that's how the game has progressed. But in 1999, it wasn't allowed. So we didn't know that. What Hansie Cronje and Bob Woolmer decided was that for us to be the initiators and the innovators of the game, it's not just about hitting the 4s and 6s, but it's increasing those little areas where you can go 2 or 3% better than the rest of the teams and combine those. So we weren't too sure about the legality of it. We looked at the rule book, which was written in 1872. So nothing there about hearing or listening, sort of transceivers and transmitters. But Hansie Cronje, what he did, it looked like a little hearing aid. He put it in his ear and he put a plaster over it, so the umpires couldn't see it. But now Alan Donald grew up in a very small town in South Africa, and he loved gadgets. And unfortunately, this came in pairs, this little hearing device. And Alan Donald wanted one in his ear, the other one. So Bob Woolmer had a walkie-talkie, he didn't need one. He just was a one-way communication. Hansie wasn't talking back. Bob just said, often Hansie as a captain and as a leader, when you're at the coal face, it's quite difficult to see the bigger picture. And let's face it, it's very true in an environment, in industry as well. When you're at the coal face on a daily basis, making all the decisions, it's quite difficult to see what is going on. So Bob said to Hansie, if I see something, I'll notice something from the stadium, I can just let you know. You don't have to respond to it, you can take it on, you can use it, or don't use it. So now with Alan Donald, he's got to bowl the first over. So he walks over, we were playing England at the Hove. One cold day or a summer's day in the Hove in the UK, and Donald's got 2 jumpers on because it's freezing cold, and he walks to the umpire, takes his cap off, takes his sweaters off, and then he digs in his ear, and he hands out this brown blob. It looked like to that. And I'm like, oh, what is that? On your finger! You South Africans are filthy! And he said, no, it's my hearing device, or my communication device. And the umpire went, oh, hold on. And Hansie by then walked over, and he said, no, I've also got one in my ear, so Bob Woolmer can communicate with me from the side. And the 2 umpires, and Clive Lloyd was the match referee at that night World Cup, and 4-hour game. And the umpires got on there, walkie-talkies, and Mr. Lloyd, shh, come in, Mr. Lloyd. South Africa have got communication devices. Are they allowed to have it? So Clive Lloyd gets back to the same rules of cricket, 1872 or whatever it was. Nothing there about communication devices, because that was more about underarm cricketing. Can W.G. Grace put the stumps back up if he gets up? Or can this kid Tendulkar play forever and score millions of runs? There's nothing in the rule books then about it. But Clive Lloyd said, in his wisdom, it's not fair for the other teams because they don't have one. And we said, that's the point, Mr. Lloyd! We're trying to be innovative. We didn't have pinch-hitters when the Sri Lankans won the World Cup in 1996. We didn't cry. We tried to find one. It didn't work for us. So we weren't trying to take shortcuts. We were trying to be the initiators and the innovators in the game of cricket. Sadly, it didn't work out for us. We had another World Cup, slip by. Okay, so change. How do you handle change? Very, very important. I think a key element of that time too for South Africa was leadership. And in an environment where I've seen from 1992, as I said, through sporting isolation, to suddenly being on the international stage, none of us had any international experience whatsoever. So Peter Kirsten, the oldest guy, 32, had played 3 games against India here in September of 1991. Myself at 22, I had to come on that tour. I had the same experience as Peter Kirsten. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Kepler Wessels was our captain. He had actually left South Africa and emigrated during those isolation days. And he had played for Australia. And he had a pretty good career for Australia. And he figured that as the captain of the team, he was the only one that knew anything about international cricket, and rightly so, sadly, in our team. But what it was, that his style of leadership was very traditional. Tell the guys what to do, and they must follow. No questions asked. It was Kepler's way or the highway. He was then replaced by Hansi Cronje. And you hear now about the importance of man management, people skills, all of that in a coach. It's less about has he played for his country, has he opened the batting against the fearsome fast bowlers of the past. It's more about what are his management skills like. Gary Kirsten did a useful job for India in the World Cup. Okay, some decent players playing with. You guys won the World Cup. With some very useful players, but Gary Kirsten as a coach, his man management, he was one of our biggest assets in our team from a teamwork point of view. A real asset to the South African cricket team. And I think he brought that same work ethic and just that team camaraderie and man management to the side. But Hansi Cronje, way back in the late 90s, he was already treating every single player as an individual, not as one masked group or one team. We all had specific skills, and we were selected for those skills, and he encouraged us to play to those strengths and not worry about, okay, that's not my department, so I don't have to fix that. I've got to get it up to a good level. Play to your strengths. The only time I was ever called to bowl in the net was one of the batsmen were out of form. But that's how bad my bowling was. I found the middle of the bat every time I bowled. Every single time without fail. I spent most of the net session running to fetch a ball, which is probably why I was quite fit in those days. My bowling in the net, terrible. But if I wasn't needed to get other guys' confidence back up, Hansi said, just go, Jonty. Go and catch balls, stop balls in the field. That's your strength, make it better. And that is the key element, I think. If you work in an environment here, we've got teams around us, individuals around us, and groups around us who do have particular skills that will benefit the whole thing. So, firstly for me, I didn't have to be the captain to be a leader within the South African team. But as the captain, Hansi didn't have to be the leader of every aspect of South African cricket. Gary Kirsten was the leader of the batting. Alan Donald, the leader of the fielding. Was he? That guy, Jonty Rhodes, he did some fielding captaincy. And that was a key element within a team. How did you get the guys to play for each other? How did you get the team to take responsibility? Because that's what you want. You want it to be a self-motivated team, not a traditional, this is what you have to do. Hansi's style of leadership was, follow me, I'm right behind you, and go. Just go, take that responsibility. And it grew us as individuals leaps and bounds. Because as I said, we had no international experience, and every day was a tough day at the office for us on the learning scale. But we took it on, we embraced it, and we were encouraged by Hansi, who treated each and every one of us as individual components of a very intricate team, and not all the same. And not expecting me to bowl the death overs, because that wouldn't have worked. But relying on me to do the fielding to motivate the guys around me. So very, very important. And the key thing that he did there was working on the process. Because let's face it, it's not just World Cups where we don't win South African cricket. You perform as a batsman, you get one opportunity. So what happens the next day? How do you pick yourself up to go out there and do the same thing again and not worry about the... We all worry about the outcome. We all worry about the outcome. Because selectors then sit down and they have a meeting and they discuss. But Hansi was convinced that the more we were focused behind us, worrying about, are we going to play next week, or who's the next guy that could take our place, you totally take your eye and your focus off what you're trying to deliver. So for him it was a real work on the process, focus on the process. If the process is good, sure, if you keep making the same mistakes day in and day out, then yeah, change probably is required. But if you can see the guys are putting in the effort and making that commitment to the team, he was less concerned about the outcome and way more concerned about the process. And what we did to get that confidence in our captain was, my father's a teacher, he's 77 years old. What are we, 2017? I have no idea. Yes, about there, yeah, 2017. My father's 77 years old and he's still teaching. He was a headmaster in the day, one of 3 boys over quite a well-developed seat, because as a headmaster in the early 80s, you could cane the boy if he was mistake or if he stepped over the line. And my father had this thing about, he was a bit nervous about he'd give us a boy 1 or 2 at the school, but if the boy was really naughty, he'd give him 3 strokes with a cane. I was a bit concerned about a few parents and their children. So what he did and he practiced, and he said, Jonty, let me show you. It's not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. What he would do, so the 3 sons, if there was any tears, any crying, all 3 line up, tak, tak, tak. Next one, tak, tak, tak. But at the end, you go to the bathroom, there's 1 strike. Just the one, yes. So the boy would go home. My father had dealt with him with disciplinary issues. The boy would go home and complain to his mother and his father about, Mr. Rhodes hit me 3 times today. And I said, wait, there's only 1? And my father's lesson, I remembered it fortunately at a very early age, that it's not practice that makes perfect. But you can stand around, let's face it, for 3 hours as a cricket player. You can stand at the nets for 3 hours and accomplish very, very little. And I think the key there for us, and what Hansi brought into the team environment, was that when it comes to team ethics and the workplace, you can't, when you arrive at work, then become somebody else and put on the corporate shirt or the t-shirt that says who you work for. You have to live that at every time of the day. Because when you're under pressure, the real you does come out. And Hansi was convinced that the more time we practice at high intensity, the more we would adopt and adapt to the team's values and the team's ethos. So if you're in an organization where you're trying to impart that, it's not just when you're at work. You've got to try and encourage the people around you to live that as a lifestyle, if possible. Because we as South African cricket team certainly did. We weren't, as I said, concerned, and we should be more concerned about the outcome at World Cups, but we were really focused on the process, and that required us every single day of the year, not just in the matches, to be at match intensity, to show the captain who believed in us that we were putting in the work required. Excuse me, having a quick drink. My cricket highlights. 3 photographs, probably 3 photographs. Definitely not my batting career, my batting stats. A very average, a couple of catches, but some amazing photographs. And the first one was me at the World Cup running, tripping over my laces, falling at the stumps, and a photographer and Inzamam still being out at the same time. So it was fake. I mean, let's face it, it just was fake. Nothing planned, never done it before, never did it again. And that was kind of me, and a couple of other photographs. And the interesting thing about the photographer, one of the pictures that I remember quite clearly, I saw the photographer the following day, was at a test series or in a one-day series in the UK, and you travel by bus, you don't fly everywhere, so everyone's kind of going through the same venue, through the same vehicles. And the photographer said his role was to follow me the entire day, all 50 over in the field. I said, man, gee, that must be, was it boring? Or he said, no, it's quite difficult to focus because you never know where I am. Like, oh, there, I'm like right here, and I'm back there, and I'm fetching hats. I'm kind of doing a lot of work that doesn't seem to be my job description. You know, you're fetching hats, moving markers, stopping the ball, that's what you're supposed to do, but you're doing all this other stuff, you're so busy. And it was really interesting to see my career like that. And I think the key for me, as I said, Hansi Cronje made me the feeling of the captain of the fielding. It has been a long journey, I do apologize. The captain of the fielding. So I would talk to the guys, politely, because my father's a headmaster, as I said, so, and most of them were 6'3". Brian McMillan, remember him? So Alan Donald, So my role was one, to get them through the overs, get through them quickly. We didn't have many spin bowlers in our team, so I would then go and say, come on guys, we're a little bit slow. So Alan Donald will go, in the next tomorrow. So Jonty, still slow, am I? Is he the one okay? Or Brian Mac would go, come on Mac! And I would run as fast as possible. He didn't have a cane, he had these meat, like hands. He was called buckets for a reason. So, you know, I've seen his son. His son's got thick head because my dad had a stick and Brian Mac just had one of those. So we developed these defensive mechanisms in South Africa to deal with our fathers. But the key for me to do, and I spoke about this, practice makes perfect, was the high intensity that we spent our lives at practice doing exactly what I was going to do in the game. But the key as well was that I had this freedom to fail. And none of us like to fail. So whether you're playing cricket for your country or working your own business for a corporate, in a company, we all have egos. Some of us bigger than the people next to us, but we all have egos, and that we don't like to be shown up by failure, by our mistakes, and things that we're uncomfortable doing. So no one sets out to fail, because we don't like to fail. But a lot of us will kind of stay right where we are. So if the ball goes past, as a fielding coach from Mumbai Indians, you heard of those guys? As a fielding coach from Mumbai Indians, I don't sit with my little book and mark down every time someone drops a catch. I've been there, I've done that. There is no such thing as an easy catch. Don't believe a word Harsha Bogey says. There is no such thing. Goes to the lights, the wind blows it, I know. I'm watching the guys. If they stand still and the ball goes past, then I make a mark. Because my whole thing was, if you don't go, you'll never know. And that was the philosophy for my preparation, the way that I played, and my responsibility as the captain of the fielding, got that right, captain of the fielding, was that, guys, if you don't go, you'll never know. Hardik Pandya, 3 days ago, what an incredible catch. 10 years ago, the Indian team would have done what Ashish Nehru did. You want me to catch that? I'm dying. Come on, guy. Say Hardik Pandya. Who would have thought? All that stuff in his head that he could actually do. What an amazing athlete. And that's what we're seeing. Guys with the freedom to fail. But to have that freedom to fail, you have the backing of the leadership, the backing of the management, the backing of the team around you. Because if you're doing things and you suddenly feel like people are marking you down or taking note of the mistakes that you're making, you suddenly get back in that comfort zone and you don't extend yourself. Okay, so that was my key element with regards to fielding coach, captain of the fielding. If you don't go, you'll never know. And it works in every industry. Final thing for me was that as a South African cricket player, growing up in apartheid era South Africa, we didn't see much of the disparity of the wealth and everything else in the country. Apartheid means living apart. White in one area, so this racial segregation meant that we was taken away. The state owned the media, the state owned everything. You never got to see what was going on. But I've seen poverty in South Africa, I've seen poverty in India. We're a third world economy. We have different issues to first world countries possibly, where CO2 emissions used to be top of it. Now it's kind of nuclear warheads and stuff like that. And how many Twitter followers you've got. But what's happening in South Africa is that too often, and I see it in India in a way too, is that we see a big issue and we don't get involved. We think it's too big. It's not my responsibility. It's the CEO's job. It's my captain's job. It's somebody else's job. It's just not my job. Because there's a billion people here. If I get up and really sweep the streets, make it clean for one day, what difference is it going to make? There's a billion people here, 1.2 or 3. Who's counting? After 1.2 or 1. Maybe who's counting? But in the South African cricket team, we've had a few instances where one run, and that's what I asked my players at IPL, Mumbai Indians, just save me one run. There's 11 guys in the field, I'm including the wicketkeeper as a fielder. He can scurry and save a single that's come off the pads. And most of the IPL games, most of the T20 games, come down to 2 or 3 runs off the last ball. So if each guy is saving me one run, that's 11 is a bit of a cushion. So that's all I'm asking the guys, save one run. I'll go back to 1999 World Cup. We played Australia in the semi-finals. We didn't lose the game. We tied it.
Yeah.
We tied the semi-final. No super over. They had a superior net run rate throughout the tournament. They went through. Then obviously the money, oh no, I'm not going to say that. They wiped Pakistan in the final of 1999. Not saying we would have won the final had we gone through, but one more run's all we needed to qualify for our first ever Cricket World Cup final. One more run. Lance Klusener having the tournament of a lifetime. He and Alan Donald. Still having nightmares. One run. 2003 World Cup. South Africa hosted it. Not for very long. We hosted it. That's what you Indian guys got wrong. You're allowed to host it, you can't keep the trophy. No. India's the first country that didn't read the fine print. You can bring in the tourists, you can have all the revenue from it, but you can't keep the trophy. Nobody else has done that. South Africa 2003, our last round robin game. I've got a finger that kind of goes, where is it? Round corners at times. So the cricket ball does damage if you get it wrong. I broke my hand in the second game of the World Cup, so I'm assigning all the blame to the other guys. But the last game of our round robin was against Sri Lanka. We had to win the game to go through to the Super Sixes. We left it quite late. We tied the game against Sri Lanka. Mark Boucher batting with Lance Klusener. Murali's bowling. And you know the duck with Lewis, when you lose a wicket, you change the score. I was talking about reading the fine print, India not reading the fine print, about not keeping the trophy at a World Cup. We didn't read the fine print on the Duckworth Lewis sheet that came out. It says, at the end of the 19th over, the score must be 112 to tie the game. So we all go, we threw, and then Mark Boucher's still batting, the last ball comes, he's the ball before for 6, and he defends the last ball. He doesn't want to get out. Because we think we won the damn game. We didn't read the fine print. To tie. We tied with Sri Lanka, they went through with the 1 point. We stayed at home with 1 point. We didn't have to go anywhere the next day. As I said, broken finger, I wasn't there. The third story, the one run, and this is the last story. The one run makes a difference. It's a happy one, finally, for South Africa. South Africa played Australia in what was termed then the best one-day international ever played, best ODI. 434 Australian scored in Johannesburg. 434. No one had ever gone past 400. So obviously no one had ever chased 434. Doesn't take genius to work that one out. But 434, but to put things in perspective, South Africa were 2-0 up in the series. And now I'm the sponsorship manager for Standard Bank. It's a limited over series, and we haven't beaten Australia for a very long time at home. We're just going to play one more game, win the series. Ricky Ponting had broken his finger in the test matches. He was back in the ODIs. Missed the first 2 ODIs. Australia lost. He was back in with a damaged hand. He said, no, he has to play. He'll play just to be on the field. Australia win the next 2. So it's now 2-2 with the deciding game to go, and they score 434. So everyone's going, oh, jokers. Jokers. I can't even do what I'm speaking out of my choke. 434. And now Herschel Gibbs, 175. Graham Smith, about 90 or 60 balls. Everybody just, as they walked out to the crease, was duck, duck, duck out. 4, boundary, 6er out, wicket, wicket, wicket. And it got down to 8 wickets down. Andrew Hall, who's batting, not a bad all-rounder, more a bowling all-rounder, batting with Mark Boucher again. Andrew Hall is facing. We need 6 runs to win in the last over. Brett Lee is bowling. Brett Lee, you know him? Pretty useful. And plus, that kookaburra has been travelling out the ground all day. So it's hit the roof, it's hit the road, it is scuffed like crazy. You know what happens when it's scuffed, obviously. So it's reverse swing at 145 kilometers an hour, quite difficult to hit. Andrew Hall hits the first ball of that last over before. Now we need 2 runs to win. Australia bring all the fielders up to save us, or prevent Andrew Hall getting the single to get Mark Boucher back on strike. The ball has just got to the crease. First ball of the over for 4. 2 to win. Andrew Hall tries again. Caught at mid-on. They can't cross because a line drives straight to mid-on. So Boucher's on the non-striker's end, and to the crease walks Mackay and Tini. I love Mackay. Mackay is an incredible man. He gave his heart and soul for the South African team and for the country. The first black African to play for South Africa. Many demands on him that none of us got to experience. Just an incredible guy. But he now walks to the crease for South Africa, needing 2 to win. and 1 to tie. 1 to tie, 2 to win. Micaiah facing Brett Lee. So I'm now the sponsorship manager. I've got to give the trophy to Ricky Ponting. I'm thinking, Grant Smith, come on, South Africa, you can do it. Micaiah, no chance. Ricky Ponting is going to get this trophy. Because for 2 years I got left out the test team, 96 to 98. Because I had pretty much an outside edge weakness in my game. So I wasn't playing to my strengths too well. But I know an outside edge because I've played many. In a one-day game, it's very useful. There's not too many slips in one-day cricket. But in test cricket, terrible shot you play. But can you imagine as an opposition keeper, captain, when Jonty Rhodes is batting, inside edge of the bat, how do you set the field for a guy who can't hit the ball in the middle of the bat? Like Jacques Callis, straight to extra cover, straight to backward point. So you bowl the ball in the right area because his technique was so good. Whereas my hockey player, it was inside edge, outside edge. You can't set a field for that. If I don't know where the ball's going, I don't think we can't do that. No job. Anyway, so my stories are very long. Micaiah Tini now has to score at least 1 to tie the game, which he tells us afterwards he glides to third man. Now he's backed away, and understandably he's coming 150 kilometers. He's batting number 11. So he's backed away, and he's managed to get this outside edge to third man. Scores an out tie. Mark Boucher's on strike. Next ball goes for 4. South Africa win the game. 438 runs. Never before been done. Not just chasing down that, but to win the series from nowhere. And Micaiah Tini, now I've got the trophy. I'm trying to hug everybody and pretending remembering I'm actually a sponsor. I'm no longer a teammate. It was all these guys I played with. And Micaiah and Tini, we're sitting at the prize giving presentation and waiting for the dignitaries as they are to be announced. Unfortunately, I said, no, I don't want to be doing that, thank you, I'll just come and give the trophy. And Micaiah was standing next to me with this bat kit on and still this big smile on his face. And I said, Micaiah, what are you smiling about? He was number 1 ICC ranked bowler at the time. He had bowlers 10 overs for 92 runs. I said, Micaiah, you're a terrible day at the office. And he probably dropped 3 catches knowing Micaiah. He says, no, Jojo. He called me Jojo. No, Jojo. My 1 run. My 1 run did won us the game. I said, how can you say that? Herschel Gibbs, 175, Graham Smith, 90. No, Jojo, if I got out, we lose by 1. And it's incredible. It was exactly that. Out of a score of 438, a world record at the time, his 1 run made all the difference. And too often we sit in an environment where we go, it's too big an issue. As I said, it's somebody else's issue. I'm not going to get up from where I am and make a difference because it's not going to make a difference. And I'm here to tell you, 1 run, your effort, your contribution makes a massive effort. So whether you have a global corporation with lakhs of employees worldwide, or there's 3 of you in your startup business, every single contribution counts. Every single contribution counts. Because I've seen it. So with that, I'd say thank you very much.
Those are some fantastic stories. And you know what? Since you're in India, you have to play some cricket before you go back. Are you ready? I'll take that for a yes. So I think, Jonty, we're going to throw some tough questions at Jonty. I think we have time for about 3 questions.